The Jake Asman Show will begin shortly. Thanks to all these great Patreon members who help support the show. Get your SuperChats ready. Jake will be here in just a moment. If you love the New York Jets, this is the place to be. And now, the Jake Asman Show.
A noted Jet hater has ripped what the Jets have done this offseason. Is he right? We'll talk about that and much more in today's Jake Asman Show. My guest is Ty Butler of 98.7 ESPN New York. So let's hit it and get it started.
Man, our Jets are primed for a historic season.
I mean, I'm kind of hungry, low-key. I'll take like a bite or something. Do I have to rate it like one? It's good. This one got the deal sign right here.
We bleed Jets green each and every day. This is not the same old Jets. We have Garrett Wilson. Let's go.
We have Bruce Hall.
Please subscribe and hit the like button below. Super Chat, baby. Cut the line. We have Sauce Gardner. We have Quinnen Williams. The Jets bandwagon is loaded. Now it's time to talk all things New York Jets. It's the Jake Asman Show.
Welcome in, everybody. It's time for the Jake Asman Show here on a Saturday. Hope your weekend is off to a tremendous start. We got a lot of Jets topics to dive into, including an update on the visit the Jets had earlier this week with Jadeveon Clowney. Before we bring on today's guest, I want to remind you that today's program is presented by our friends at Roan Apparel. In fact, I'm rocking the Roan Apparel quarter zip right now. They got tops, polos, pants. Upgrade your closet with some of the finest gear you can find. They have clothes for every occasion. Work from home, work at the office, date night, night out with your friends. You name it, they have it. Roan.com, promo code Asman, so you could get that 20% discount at checkout. Thanks to Roan for being a part of today's program. Today's guest is one of my good friends in the business. You can listen to him on 98.7 ESPN New York. The great Ty Butler joins us now. What's up, Ty?
Yo, it's an honor to be on here, man. I've seen the flock of guests you've had flying through here. It's been fun to watch you do this show and take it to success, man. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I've been, the last time you and I were on the air together was New Year's Day, and ironically enough, we're doing a show filling in for DiPietro and Rothenberg, and we actually had Nick Wright on as one of the guests that day, and we're about to play one of his takes about the Jets. Now, you and Nick are friends. I know you used to produce his show. It's funny because I actually have met Nick a couple times, including about 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. He was at this sports media conference I was at in New York. So personally, seems like a great guy. However, when it comes to what he says about our football team, I don't think I can vehemently disagree with a human being more.
Yeah, it's funny because, Nick does an excellent job. Him, Chris, and Kevin Wild's fantastic show on FS1. And I'm watching this segment live that he did about the Jets. And I'm texting him. And I try my hardest not to do it as much because, we got friends in the business. We do live television and radio. You don't want to, be too annoying. But I mean, the brilliance of Nick is that he is so good at his job that he incites a reaction, not just from the average audience just watching the show, but from his friends. So I'm texting him, I'm sending him angry texts, and I couldn't disagree with him more. So, I'm excited to get a chance to talk about what he said about our football team.
So I'll play the clip here. So Nick Wright claims that we Jet fans should be livid with what the Jets have done this offseason. Here's the clip from the segment on FS1 the other day.
So I don't know that they have a squad. They have a very old team in a league that does not ever work in. So their biggest offseason acquisitions, let's show them, because we both tackles and the wide receiver. They are 33. That is old, Brew. That is old in the NFL. The games missed the last 2 years. Morgan Moses is the healthiest of them. The other, Tyron Smith and Mike Williams, has missed a season's worth of games in the last 2 seasons. They have been, by definition, halftime players. And they are
There's no doubt the
bruised.
health is huge.
Right, but that is, if I were a Jets fan, I'd be livid.
Really?
Because let me tell you why.
Okay, go ahead.
They had a potentially historic 2022 draft. Now, they had the extra pick from trading, great trade. Maybe the best move Joe Douglas ever made was the Jamal Adams trade, getting 2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams. So you had an extra first-round pick. You then traded back into the first round. You had 4 picks in the top 36. You walked away with Sauce Gardner, the second-best corner in his class. Shout out Trent McDuffie. Garrett Wilson.
Great.
Very good.
Jermaine Johnson, who made a Pro Bowl, so maybe an underrated but really good player. And Breece Hall, who's a really good running back. He blew out his knee, but we'll see. You had an opportunity in that moment to say, when you crush a draft like this, you take a long view. And we tried to build a juggernaut. Instead, they gave the reins to a literal and figurative madman and have just now operated as if the way teams operated, Brew, the way you described it, like prime LeBron in the last year of his contract.
That's right.
Oh, my God. We got to make sure we maximize now. We have the best player in the world, and he could leave. You have a 40-something-year-old coming off a torn Achilles, and you are at the expense of being able to take advantage of these guys' primes together. You are building a team that doesn't make sense. You are building a...
All right, so that's Nick Wright saying that we Jet fans, Ty, should be livid. And let's establish a couple things. One, Aaron Rodgers could cure cancer, and Nick Wright would say he didn't do it fast enough, so I'd like to start with that. But that all being said, are you, I should say, as a Jet fan, are you livid with what Joe Douglas has put together so far this offseason?
No. And again, I want to preface it. Nick's my guy. That's, that's my big brother in this business. I disagree with him just because of, how he has constructed the narrative surrounding this team, saying, they should be in a position where they're taking advantage of the youth that they have at their disposal, courtesy of that 2022 draft. And I would argue this is them taking advantage of the youth that they have. They went out there and got Aaron Rodgers. And I know revisionist history is going to say, they should have gone in a different direction. Who's the quarterback they should have gone after? Who is it? Derek Carr? Like Lamar Jackson to me is like the answer, but it just never felt like Baltimore was in a position where they were going to part with him. And then he wins the MVP last year. So if it's not Lamar Jackson, who's the quarterback they should have gone after? Now, you look at this offseason, people got to remember, man, when you're in the position that the Jets are, when they have this amount of gaping holes, like you have to be meticulous about how you attack the offseason because it's not like you've got a load of salary cap, and you also have the 10th pick in the draft. So, yes, are there question marks with Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, John Simpson, Mike Williams? Of course. But you got to take some risks. You have to, and they've done that. And if these guys stay healthy, I think they can be a really good team. Obviously, it's predicated on Rodgers at 40 coming off of a torn Achilles, but I like the aggressiveness they've had and the risk taking they've shown in this offseason.
Well, him even just insinuating that Trent McDuffie's better than Sauce Gardner is classic. All right, now you're just taking that extra shot just to dig at the Jet fan, and Nick knows exactly what he's doing. But you're 1,000% right, Ty. I mean, the revisionist history of that take is laughable. They missed on Zach Wilson. That's why they had to bring in Aaron Rodgers. They tried to build it the right way, but when you screw up the quarterback situation and the draft that high, you have no choice. And we've seen plenty of teams pivot. The Eagles pivoted to Jalen Hurts after they missed on Carson Wentz. The Bucs went from a 7-win team to Super Bowl champs after they added Tom Brady. The difference is Aaron Rodgers got hurt on the 4th play of the year. But Nick talks about this Jets team like they won 2 games. Like, Nick, they had a top 5 defense, top 5 special teams. They still won 7 games. What did you want them to do? Not sign Tyron Smith? What offensive
And that would be my
better?
question. My question would be, so who are the free agents that they should have gone after?
Right.
Because, yes, did they get bargains on these guys? Of course, when you get a bargain on, a Tyron Smith and Mike Williams with the talent that they have, it suggests to you that there is some risk associated with it. And for them, it's, for Smith, it's age and injury. He hasn't played a full season since 2015. Mike Williams tore his ACL last year, hasn't played a full season in 2 years. So, of course, that, that's going to be something that you highlight. If things go wrong, what is it? It's the injury, it's age. But I look at the Jets winning 7 games last year. And Jake, we did that show together week 8. And I apologize, my son's in the background. We did that show together week 8, following that Giants win, right? And we were both like on a high, but it was also weird because they could have and should have lost that game. With the way the season played out, it's gut wrenching. You want to fire everybody. But then you take a look back and say, man, we had the worst quarterback room in the league and ended up with 7 wins. What would a healthy Aaron Rodgers do? So now it's not just a healthy Rodgers, it's an improved offensive line, it's an improved wide receiver room. And by the way, we still haven't gotten to the draft yet, where they got the 10th pick. So there's still a lot to be done in this offseason. But so far, in my estimation, so good.
Well, my pushback to Nick would also be, did the Bills get better this offseason? No.
They got worse. The Dolphins got worse.
Right. So the Jets, if they had done nothing other than just get Aaron Rodgers back, they're a better team. If you want to say, all right, well, he's 40 coming off injury, he's not going to play 17 games next year. Okay. Well, can he play 14? And then Tyrod Taylor comes in, and is he capable of going 2-2 or 3-1 with this roster? Yeah. And you look at this team a year ago, they had no chance with their quarterback room, yet they still were able to beat 3 playoff teams. So no one's celebrating 7-10. But I think the biggest pushback that him saying that we as fans should be livid is, what should they do with this window when you're not paying Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Brees Hall, Elijah Vera Tucker? This is when you could take those chances on 1 to 2 year deals with veterans to go for it. The Bucs did the exact same thing with Brady, and it worked. The difference is we didn't get to see what it was going to look like with Rodgers because he literally got hurt on the first drive of the season.
Yeah, if you're livid, it's not because of what they've done this offseason. Because as we just pointed out, they've had a pretty good offseason. Now, understandably, you can't judge it until the results are on the field and, those things take shape. But just based on on paper eye test, yeah, you can't be livid. If you're livid, it's only rooted in one thing. You're looking at a general manager who's 27 and 56 since he's come on board. You're looking at a head coach who's 18 and 33 since he's coming on board. You're putting your trust into those two guys. And then you're welcoming back Aaron Rodgers, who next time he plays, the last time he had a great season was 2 years ago because he got hurt this year. And then his last season in Green Bay, where do you go? 28 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Not great by his standards. So that's a lot to ask for a guy coming off of that injury, and a lot to ask for a brain trust that simply has not shown you the results that warrants them getting another chance. So I understand all of that, but just basing it on the moves they've made so far, because they're the Jets, there's really nothing they could have done that the people who were already down on them were going to celebrate.
And that's what I've
what it
told.
comes down to.
Yeah, and I've told my listeners that numerous times. Like, the Jets will never get the benefit of the doubt by anyone nationally, and you could argue they certainly shouldn't. But if you objectively look at what they've done, I don't know how any Jet fan can complain about the moves they've made, because they've taken advantage of the situation they're unfortunately in with what this roster is. Like, this team is supposed to have Zach Wilson on a rookie deal right now, hitting his stride and being, able to contend like what the Texans are now about to do with CJ Stroud for the foreseeable future. That's what it's supposed to look like, right? The Texans had the worst record in football since 2020. They hit on Stroud. All of a sudden, they're one of the Super Bowl favorites now. So you need Rodgers healthy, but they signed a capable backup, probably the best available. They got arguably the best offensive tackle available in Tyron Smith. You roll the dice on him any day on a 1-year deal for $6.5 million guaranteed. And honestly, Nick brings up Morgan Moses and just kind of poo-poos that one. Morgan Moses has been an Iron Man. He played through a torn pectoral injury last year from week 4 on, still played in 14 games and graded out at an incredibly high level, and is still really solid, as we Jet fans saw firsthand. So I think he's like underrating the moves they've made. Like, this offensive line went from one of the worst in the league to, if they're even just average now with Aaron Rodgers, that should be more than enough to win 3 or 4 more games to be in the playoffs.
Now, look, if the take is I just don't trust Aaron's going to come back from a torn Achilles at age 41 and be good, then that's fair. If that's the stance you have about this organization, and as we just mentioned, can't be afforded the benefit of the doubt, considering they've missed the playoffs 13 straight years, if that's the stance, then sure. But looking at this offseason and saying, yeah, they should be livid, hell no. And then we're going to get to the draft in a moment. That's where you build your team. You build your team through the draft, and you supplement those pieces that are much needed through free agency. And Connor Hughes, I'll be honest. Like when I first saw the report from Connor Hughes at the start of free agency that the Jets are going to let the first and second wave go by, they're not going to make any big splashes. To me, as a fan at my core, I was angry. I was upset because when you hit the ground running last season and then it falls apart the way that it did, and the free agency period comes and you're not making the big splash, you're going to naturally be upset. But then when you see it play out and it's meticulous and it's risk taking, but it's high, high risk, high reward, I got to say I'm pleased so far. And then we get to the draft and we'll see what happens there.
1,000%. And, ultimately, what he says at the end about Aaron Rodgers, I think, is also unfair. Like, what do you mean they've handed the organization over to him? Any elite team that has a franchise quarterback will listen to that quarterback, consult with that guy. It's no different than the superstar in the NBA. Like, Tom Brady brought Gronk, Antonio Brown, and Leonard Fournette with him. Like, that's kind of how it goes. The problem is Rodgers got hurt. So I'm just going to say this to all the Rodgers haters. Bet against an all-time great at your own risk, man. He doesn't need to be the MVP for this team with the roster around him to be damn good next year. But if he is, watch out. That obviously changes the tenor of everything this team could do.
What's going to hurt Rodgers from the public, from the PR standpoint, and it's going to hurt his public approval rating just outside of the nonsense tapping with the vice president and Jimmy Kimmel. Like, that's obviously going to spark a reaction from a large segment of the population, and rightfully so. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve criticism. He deserves a lot of criticism for that stuff. You can't be the guy who's saying we got to eliminate distractions and you become the biggest distraction. But what's hurting him is the early returns on the free agency brought in last year were just net negatives. Like Lazard, but he's being floated around in trade rumors. That was an absolute disaster. The fact that it's the narrative created was that the reason why they didn't go out there and get it back. I don't know how true this is, but the reason they didn't go out there and get a backup quarterback was because by his own ego, he wanted to groom Zach Wilson. Like,
which I think is ridiculous, by the way.
Randall Cobb, I don't get too upset about Randall Cobb because he was like a locker room presence, leadership. He wasn't supposed to have the amount of pressure on him that he had. As far as like delivering, for large chunks of the game. Billy Turner is a backup. Like, who cares? But the Lazard signing to me was the big one. Bringing in Dalvin Cook, maybe it was by Aaron's influence. That obviously blew up in their face. But he's got a lot to prove this year. Don't get it twisted. While I enjoy the offseason they've had so far, Aaron's got a lot to prove, man. This head coach has a lot to prove. The general manager has a lot to prove. So rightfully, there's pressure heading into next season.
No question. Ty, your mic is crackling a little bit, so I'm going to bring you off screen and let you reset that real quick, and then we'll get you back up there. But you're right, and like the thing with Rodgers that I would add is ultimately, like, it's on him because this fan base is going to vigorously defend him as long as he goes out there and he plays well, and I think he'll be really good. And I think the Jets have now put themselves in a spot where if they could just protect him and he could just be above average, use his smarts, use his mind to open things up for this team offensively. That's really all they need if we assume the defense continues to remain elite, which we have no reason to think it won't. And their special teams unit led by their Pro Bowl level punter and kicker continues to do what they've done the last couple of years. We'll bring Ty back on now. I think we got the mics
now. We good?
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Not bad.
They're good.
Man, the football guys don't want to hear this truth because, Kansas City, they could celebrate now. Here come the Jets. But, yeah, man, as you said, another thing people are going to throw out there, too, is, are the Jets a top 5 defense? They were 12th in scoring last season. Turnovers was one thing they had to correct because they didn't force a lot of that 2 years ago. They did last year. But the 12th in scoring, context needs to be applied to that. And it's when you have the worst quarterback room in football, am I going to really get on you for being 12th in scoring? Like, they did all they could. And that
you had to watch the games to appreciate it.
And the murderer's row they had with Buffalo and with Philly and with Kansas City, like that, those were some tough games early. And I won't go as far as Saleh said, embarrassed them, but they did a pretty good job against the elite quarterbacks.
Look, they beat 3 playoff teams last year. They held Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen to their worst games of the season when they played them. Jalen Hurts, same thing. Anyone who watched saw this is a damn good defense. And I think by the end of the year, wore down, right?
Yeah.
They were always on the field, always asked to be invincible, and they didn't they didn't have a chance to win. I mean, I think I gave the stat so many times a year ago. Aaron Rodgers in his career, it was 80-10 in Green Bay when the Packers allowed 20 or less points. Like the Jets, how often the last 2 years have allowed less than 20 points and still lost? Like it's crazy. So hopefully, God willing, with health, things are different. Some super chats for Ty. Then we'll talk more about the draft. Ty Butler from 98.7 ESPN New York's my guest. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter. And if you're watching live right now, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. JR Jet writes in, I met Nick Wright in Harlem. He was pretty cool. I believe his on-air persona is mostly an act, but I made sure to tell him, put some respect on my Jets. Cha-ching. I love it, JR. Love it.
His on-air persona, it's not an act at all. Nick believes everything he's saying, and I mean he's good at getting people to, have a reaction inside it based on what he's saying. But he does feel strongly about it. I disagree with him, and like I said, I was texting him. I was mad because I got in my feelings. I saw that on TV. I'm like, man, and that's why we brought him on the show. I brought him on the show. It was maybe a week before the NFL season. He was on my show. Then we had him on New Year's Day. So I'll challenge him, but he feels conviction in his takes, and hopefully us Jet fans get to laugh at him next year when they beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game to get to the Super Bowl. That'll be fun.
Well, the one thing he said that is just objectively not true, even if you want to criticize every move they've made or criticize Rodgers, saying Trent McDuffie is somehow better than Sauce Gardner is classic.
Yeah,
Stop it.
I
Stop
don't
it with
believe
that.
that.
What a name here from Mike D's Nuts. Thank you, Mike. Nick is a classic troll. Jets had a good offseason. He's also an MJ hater, so I take none of his takes seriously. Nobody is saying what Nick is saying. Well, you're a LeBron guy, Ty, so I'm sure you love his LeBron
It's interesting
backing.
that people call me a LeBron guy. Kobe's my favorite player of all time.
Interesting.
And that's always going to be, number one in my power rankings. But I defend LeBron against some of his criticism is accurate, but some of it I think is foolish. But if that lends me as a LeBron guy, then I guess so be it.
You know what? You know how this works in sports radio. You got to pick a side. There's
Yeah,
no
right?
there's no room for nuance and gray area.
Man.
Super chat from Dre, who writes in, Happy Saturday, Jake. Hey, Nick Wright. GFY, first ones go. Last word yourself. I'm making plans to go to Detroit for the NFL draft. Do you need an on-site reporter? JETS. Jets.
You going to be at the draft, Jake?
So I will not be at the draft, but I will be, and I announced this a couple days ago. More details to come, Jet fans. I will be live from the largest indoor sports book in the world. I'll be live at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas, and we're doing a mega cast high for all 3 days of the draft. So I got to get you on at one point during the draft to get some takes in real time.
Oh, let's do it, man. That's exciting. You should get an estate in Vegas, man. You've got a nice little situation. Every time I check you out, you're in Vegas, bro.
Man, I can't get enough of Vegas, Ty. It's a problem.
you gambling out there with Otani and his interpreter?
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but let's just say, Shohei and we go back a long way. Dre, if you're in Detroit and you want to call in and be our on-site reporter, absolutely, we'll have you on. Ace of Spade with a super chat. Nick Wright played the shock value card for attention. Look, Nick is great at his job, as Ty said. I just vehemently disagree with him when it comes to the Jets. Let's get to the draft now, Ty. I want your take on the number 10 pick because, it felt like going into this offseason, as someone who talks about this team every day on YouTube, it was kind of silly to entertain anything other than take the best available offensive lineman, call it a day. But now, even though I'm still pro, take an offensive lineman or trade back and still take an offensive lineman if you can get some extra picks, there is at least a compelling argument. You can go receiver. You could trade up and get one of the big three receivers. You could stay there at 10 and take Brock Bowers. Like, there's a lot of options all of a sudden the Jets suddenly have. Your thoughts on what they could potentially do now with that number 10 pick?
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to be in, where you're in the draft in a position where you're not locked into one specific need. And it's not because you have so many of them, which they do, but it's also it's not because of that, but it's really a product of the offseason they've had. As you mentioned, I came in thinking if you don't take an offensive lineman, this entire regime needs to get fired. And now I'm kind of leaning, like I've had Jet fans who are friends of mine every day talking to me about Bowers. And for weeks, I've been hesitant. I've been resistant. And I'm just like, man, you don't come into this offseason thinking we're a tight end away from being a contender. But because of all the additions they've had on that offensive line, you bring in Mike Williams, you add a defensive tackle. Now, I wouldn't be mad at Bowers because here's the thing, man. If you're all in, as they've shown this offseason, then Bowers should be the play. Like, I understand offensive linemen because you need depth. I think I saw Damian Woody was on Get Up yesterday saying, got to go offensive lineman because you need some depth. And obviously, Damian Woody was a part of that free agency class that helped the Jets get to the next level back in 2009. But if you're all in, man, as Saleh and Douglas should be, because they're on a 1-year deal. It's a 1-year contract. Woody Johnson told you got to make the playoffs. He said it not so many words, but they don't make the playoffs. They up out of here. Jake Asman might be running the team next year.
I would do a better job than some of these GMs we've seen. But here's my thing, though. If Tyron Smith and AVT and even Morgan Moses, who's not old, but he's an older offensive lineman, didn't have all these questions, I'd be more comfortable with Bowers or more comfortable with a receiver. But, like, what could derail the season? Lack of weapons or the O-line getting Rodgers killed? Like, they've led the NFL in O-line injuries the last 2 years. As much as I love the Tyron Smith signing, I mean, he hasn't played a full game since 2015. Ryan Fitzpatrick was the Jet quarterback then. So it's like, I just feel like you're better off being guarded against disaster with the O-line by taking one of these stud tackles in this loaded class. And then if you think about it, Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses are both on 1-year deals. So this guy's going to be your long-term answer at one of the tackle spots. So, like, I think it's risky if you don't get more coverage.
But that last part is what makes this such a fascinating offseason, because conventional wisdom and logic tells you draft guys and you bring those personnel members in who are a part of your long-term future. But this regime can't be thinking about the long-term future. Like, that's the predicament they put themselves in. You've been so bad for 5 or 4 years for Douglas and now 3 years for Saleh. You've been so bad, you can't really be thinking about the future. You got to think about this season. You got a quarterback who's 41. So I hear you. I actually don't feel strongly one way or the other. I'm fine with them going offensive lineman. I'm fine with them taking a skill position play. I'm fine with them trading back. I also saw Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network, suggest maybe they trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr., which I don't think is going to happen. That feels like a perfect fit for the Chargers. I don't see that happening, and the Neighbors is going to go to the Giants. But yeah, man, they're in a position where they can pretty much do anything, and I'd be all for it. Well, unless it's taking a quarterback, which people have suggested, and I mean that's just bat crazy.
Or like another defensive tackle, defensive end. Oh, this fan base would go nuts. But to your point, if they were to trade up, like I'm okay with that because that's like the all-in move for the big three receiver. I don't trust the Jets to be the team that takes a tight end in the top 10. And they're the team that evaluates that position properly, and they're the ones that get it right. Like the best tight ends in the league, none of them were first-round top 10 picks. Most of them weren't even first-round picks, whether it's Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle, etc. To me, that's where the real risk is. If you trade down and get more capital and still go offensive line, that to me is best-case scenario because then you would have, in theory, maybe an extra second and then your third or 2/3, and you could address wide receiver and probably get a starting level receiver in the second and third round in this draft class. So that's like my ideal scenario, but I won't sit here and kill them if they took Bowers, kill them if they went receiver, kill them if they just, stayed at 10 and took the best lineman, because they've done enough this offseason where there's a legitimate path for any of those options and you don't look foolish. That's what I like about what they've done.
Yeah, and if you look at the Jimmy Johnson trade chart, that it's not an exact science and it's not always accurate, but that chart says that in order for them to gain the value of the 64th pick, which would be a second-round pick, they got to trade down 6 spots. So you go from 10 to 16, which is a big risk, man, because then you might not even have the best offensive lineman or the best of the 4 offensive linemen available. So them sitting at 10 and 72 right now creates a tricky situation. But yeah, I will say that at the start of the offseason, I was leaning O-line. I'm moving further and further into the direction of going Bowers just because I'm envisioning, man, the explosiveness of an offense with Garrett and Mike Williams and Brees and, Bowers there. I'm just looking at the potential of what that offense can do, especially, look, the defense is good. And I understand, like, you need to have some depth on your offensive line. But, Jake, Mahomes is not going to have a bad season like he did during the regular season like that again. And they just got Hollywood Brown. They're going to put up some points. The Bills, their offense, I know they've lost some pieces. The Bills are still going to be a high octane offense. So the Dolphins, the Chargers, like all these teams, the Texans you mentioned, these teams are going to score points. The Jets need to have the weapons to match that. It's not a league anymore where it's championship wins defenses. You're gonna have an offense that can put up some points. So that's why I tend to be moving in that direction.
Do you hear that, Nick? Nick, do you hear that, Ty? Do you hear that sound? That's Joe Douglas music. Let me tell you, draft night's going to be insane if they took Brock Bowers. You'd be a Bowers boy, Ty, if you're on the Brock Bowers train. That's what the cult following of the Bauer fans are called.
Oh, really? Is a Bowers boy?
The Bauer boys. They're out. They're out, man. They want him.
Well, Rich Samini, I don't know if you saw the poll he put out. Of moves the Jets can make, Bowers was the second most popular, 41%, and then you had 49% of people saying they should go offensive line. How about this? 10% of the audience that Rich Samini polled said that they should go either fourth wide receiver or quarterback. Oh my goodness!
No, thank you.
Quarterback, really?
No, thank you.
Oh,
and now,
goodness.
if they did it on day 3 of the draft, they took a flyer on someone, why not? And no issue with that. But this is not the year for a quarterback.
Yeah.
When this regime is not here to see that quarterback even go through the developmental stage if they don't win in 2024.
And this year, like best case scenario, that quarterback's not playing. So you're drafting a guy who, if everything goes well, doesn't play a single snap all season long. When you're all in on trying to win a championship, hell no.
Can't do it. Can't do it. If you have a question for Ty Butler, write them in. Super Chats will cut the line. I want to give a shout out to our latest Patreon subscribers. You guys have been so supportive on Patreon. We're going to give you bonus content every month. Get your name in the countdown ticker, and probably the best perk we offer over at patreon.com/Jake Asman Show. Discord access. Shout out to Kevin James and John Thomas, our 2 most recent Patreon subscribers. I have not been able to verify if this is the King of Queens, Kevin James, that signed up for the Patreon. But if it is you, Kevin, I know you're a big Jet fan. Welcome aboard. Let's get you in that Discord.
Is this the guy? So I'm blanking on his wife's name in the show. But I saw her on TV the other day. She's like hosting a game show now. I forget what her name was in King of Queens. His wife, but she's hosting a game show. That's pretty cool. Maybe she's a Jet fan too.
Hey, someone's got to be. Mr. Bonesy writes in, and he's been a channel member for 7 months. He's using his free super chat every month for being an Asmaniac. Final game 7, 12 seconds left, down 1. Your ball you have. Well, your savings account bet on the game. You go in Jordan or LeBron, Ty. Clutch, rules, everything. So basically, this is the scenario: Jordan or LeBron in this spot.
It's funny because like LeBron's known as like a guy who's not clutch, but guess who is all time in playoff buzzer beaters, the most ever? That would be LeBron. Guess who has a higher field goal percentage in late game situations? That would be LeBron. But I will say, even despite all of that, for a final shot down 1 with the ball, I'm going Jordan. That's the icon. That's the iconic player to go with. So I'm going MJ, but that doesn't mean he's the greatest player of all time. But I'm taking Jordan in that situation. I'm not gonna lie about that.
The Killer Cub says, "Hey Jake, last year you roasted Bill Barnwell, and let's just say we should keep quiet about bad takes this year." Well, let's be fair to why we criticize what Bill Barnwell said. First off, he comes out with this hot take that the Jets are going to come in last in the AFC East, which sounded ridiculous at this time a year ago. And then 2, he ended up walking it back several times after that. So I called him out more so for just not having conviction and at least to stick to his opinion. He wallowed on it multiple times after ESPN New York host had him on their show, and then he walked it back. So that was more of my criticism of Barnwell. And also, he ended up not even being right. The Jets didn't come in last in the AFC East. That'd be Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots.
You know what's funny, man? You know what really annoys me about last year? Because there were a lot of people who just were down on the Jets. And they ended up being right, but for the wrong reasons. They weren't right because they just nailed it. I mean, you had Rodgers going down 4 snaps into the season. No one predicted that.
That's it. That's all. That's all you had to say. Like,
I guess you could be right, but you were right for the, you could be right, but be right for the wrong reasons.
It's well said. No team lost their quarterback for the entire year on the fourth play of the year. Like people will bring up other teams that were able to maybe survive or win with a couple of different quarterbacks. But once again, there's a difference in a backup having to come in for a couple games here or there and having to play a backup for an entire season, especially Zach Wilson, who, if we're being honest, should not have been the backup in the first place. And I was outspoken on this for a year and all of training camp saying I didn't agree with the idea that he was just anointed QB2, but it is what it is. As far as Zach Wilson goes, Ty, do you think they could get anything for him, or are you expecting the Jets at this point just to cut him?
Man, when you see what Mac Jones went for, when you see what Justin Fields went for, like it's hard to imagine them being able to recoup any type of draft capital for Zach Wilson. They botched this situation, just as far as playing his value. If you had any intent on resurrecting his career, you should have actually redshirted him. The Jets somehow found a way to redefine the definition of redshirt, because redshirt doesn't mean he's a second string quarterback and one play away from coming in. Redshirt means regardless of what happens, he's not going to play. So maybe they could have been able to have some get some value, but they're going to have to cut him, man. And it's going to be embarrassing. The second pick in the draft 3 years ago, and you're just cutting him. That's insane.
Sad, real sad. Ty, before I get you out of here, you're a Yankees guy like me. How we feeling about the upcoming New York Yankee season? We confident? We optimistic? Or we already down to the dumps that it feels like everyone's getting hurt before the year even starts? Where are you at with our Yankees?
So listen, Aaron Judge dealt with injuries. Cole's going to be out 1 to 2 months. Rizzo's hurt. DJ LeMahieu's hurt. That's 4 of your best players. I mean, what do you expect? But I'll say this, man. I come in resigned because I never thought, even after the Soto edition, they were like the favorites to win the championship. Certainly they can contend, but I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that they'll be in it and probably not get it done. So because that's where my mentality is, of course I'm excited. You cannot be the team or the fan of a team who adds Juan Soto to a lineup that already features Aaron Judge and not be excited. So of course, I'm fascinated to see what this team looks like. And by the way, there's no confirmation that he's going to be here long term. So why not enjoy it? It could just be 162 of these bad boys with Soto and Judge. I'm gonna enjoy it as best as I can.
Yep, I think that's the way to do it. I mean, it's you get into the playoffs, it becomes such a crapshoot at the end of the day. So that's what they got to do. And last year was such an unmitigated disaster. They had to make that big move for Soto. So yeah, I'll be at opening day here in Houston on Thursday, and I'm looking
That
forward
should
to
be
watching.
fun, man, against the hated Astros. You gonna be wearing your Yankee attire?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that's cool.
Especially now that I don't do media in Houston anymore, so I have no problem letting it be known. I'm a Yankees fan.
Let me ask you this: who do you? Let me phrase this the correct way so that it's like sports politically correct. From a sports standpoint, who do you have a more passionate disdain for? Is it the Red Sox or the Astros?
It's an excellent question because I had to live down here through the cheating scandal and through the Yankees being eliminated by the Astros so many times. It's the Astros because the Red Sox-Yankee rivalry is not what it once was. Both teams have not been good at the same time in several seasons already, and just the intensity of those games is never going to match what it was when we were growing up in the 2000s and you had 03, 04 and the heated rivalry that transpired with that. So to me, it's the Astros by a lot right now, which is crazy.
Yeah, I feel you. It's just that first of all, the Red Sox have essentially dominated this rivalry since 2004. The Yankees had a chance to beat them in 2018 and then lost in 4 games. But I mean, to your point, you lose the wild card game in 2015, lose in 2017 and 2019, and again in 2022. They've just spanked the Yankees, so it's hard to. Yeah, they've owned them, and they've done it cheating and then post cheating. So now you don't really have that excuse. It's definitely Houston for me right now, because especially the Red Sox. Yeah, they have the championships, but they're also like in last place all the time. They either win the World Series or they're in last place, whereas the Astros are consistent contenders.
And now it feels like the Red Sox aren't even like trying. Like it's just, I mean, there's people in Boston who can't even name players on the team. I saw like a viral news clip video going around the other day.
I mean, they're never going to be able to explain trading Mookie Betts in his prime. Like that is going to live for. I mean, up there with giving Babe Ruth to the Yankees.
It's It's bad. It's real bad. You're not wrong. Ty, I appreciate you, man. I'll let you enjoy your Saturday. Thanks for popping on, man. And hopefully, hopefully you and I get to do a show together at some point soon again on 98.7.
Yeah, man, let's do it. And shout out to you, bro. Keep doing your thing, man. Sirius XM, Mad Dog Radio. I used to work over there. Keep doing your thing, bro. I'm looking forward to coming on again.
Likewise, ladies and gentlemen, the great Ty Butler. Follow him on Twitter at Ty D Butler. Does an excellent, excellent job talking Jets, Giants, all things New York sports for 98.7 ESPN. We'll take some of your calls coming up on the Gusbuster Umbrella Hotline. Lots still to do. Before we get back into your calls, I want to talk all about Huga House, the hat that Aaron Rodgers wears. They're one of my new sponsors. Go to HUEGAhouse.com and get yourself a vintage-inspired cap from Huga House. Code Asman at checkout will get you 15% off. Once again, Huga House, the hat that you see Rodgers wearing and a bunch of other Jet players, the hat you see Shane Gillis rocking. I won't mention a certain Bills quarterback that wears it as well, but you can check it out, HugaHouse.com, promo code Asman at checkout, and you will get 15% off. All right, let's get to some of your calls. Gusbuster Umbrella Hotline. First up on our show is Peter Castro. What's up, Peter?
Hey, Jake, how you doing?
What's up, Peter? How you been, man?
Good. I feel good. I heard what that guy had to say about the Jets, and there's so many of those sportcasters that are on the air that badmouth the Jets. And one of the biggest ones in New York is Mike Francesa. If you listen to him, he loves the Giants, and any Jet mistake that's made, he embellishes it. He loves it, but he'll say he doesn't. He's so full of shit, it's coming out of his ears. He makes me sick. But I listen to him because he is knowledgeable about things, but he hates the Jets, and there's just certain sportcasters that hate the Jets. And
a lot of them do, Peter. I mean, and the Jets, because they have not won, they make it easy for these people just to continue to take their shots. That's why they have to win to change any narrative.
Well, I just hope that the players keep their mouths shut, stay off Twitter, and go into this year and just play. And if there's one thing about the Jets that they should be talking about is maybe their offensive coaching staff that needs help. Other than that, the team is fine. The team is fine. And if Rodgers is everything that we think he is, this team's going to win 12 or 13 games easily. And they're going to breeze to it. They got more talent on this team than most of these teams I've seen. I've watched the Jets since 1965, and this team is more talented than the Super Bowl team, way more talented. And I don't know what the reason is. Once Aaron Rodgers gets in there, there's no more excuses, and they should win at least 12 or 13 games. And the only weakness on this team that I see is the offensive coaching staff, which they should bring in somebody to tutor these guys a little bit with some help.
I agree. I agree. Look, the coaching on that side of the ball is the biggest question. What makes me feel a lot better is Aaron Rodgers is essentially the offensive coordinator, and that's what every player has said. And we've seen what the Jets are doing work. We've seen it work very recently with two other Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and Peyton Manning in Denver, and obviously Tom Brady a few years ago with the Buccaneers. So there's a path for this to work. Obviously, for the Jets to get any benefit of the doubt, they're going to have to win first. You're not going to have people being like, I think the Jets are going to be great. It's a lot easier to do what Nick Wright does, or you bring up Francesa and just say it's not going to work for the Jets because history shows you're probably going to be right. Eventually it's got to change.
Well, if you remember when Mike White came in last year for Zach Wilson, it looked like a different team.
Yeah. They actually look like a real offense. Amazing how that works.
I couldn't believe my eyeballs, but it became very obvious to me what the problem was. And with the talent that they have, there should be no stopping them. They should go right. They should win that division, and barring injuries, major injuries. But hopefully we got past that this year, and we had all our injuries, and this year we won't have as many or not as significant as last year. Once Aaron Rodgers went down, more or less the season was over.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line, Peter. Good call. I love positive Peter. How about that? See, Peter's a little bipolar with us. Sometimes he's the Jet fan in Jet fan hell, and then sometimes he's like, hey, This team should breeze to 12 or 13 wins. What is it, Peter? What is it? The big fella has got a super chat for us. He writes in, Team John Wick, Nick Wright, and that entire show's unwatchable. He's awful, and that whole panel are just as bad. Hey, I get it, man. Not everyone's going to like people's sports opinions. I don't personally watch a lot of those debate shows, but, people certainly ask me about them. And if enough people do, I'm like, all right, we'll do a video on it. Big Islander fan says, Jake, really disappointed in the reaction by the team and Patrick Waugh after the loss against the Wings. I can't even get myself to put on the Isles today. I mean, it was disgusting. I mean, their season was essentially on the line the other night, and they no-showed. So, yeah, it was terrible. This team is just not good enough. They had that 6-game losing streak, and it's like, or winning streak, and it's like, oh, this is who they are. It was fool's gold, unfortunately. We are 19 members away from new emojis being added for Asmaniacs. Just 19. Let's get back to the Gusbuster hotline right now and bring on B-Mac, who joins us now. What's up, B-Mac?
Hey, Jake. How are you? Good Saturday to you. Yeah, Nick Wright, he's a clown. Kevin Wiles, he's a clown. Kevin Wiles is keep bringing up Washington have a 300-yard game his last year in Green Bay. Like, whatever. And, this is trolls. And the point I want to make about Nick Wright is before the whole COVID and vaccine thing, Nick Wright was a big Aaron Rodgers fan. He was a big Aaron Rodgers supporter. His segments about Aaron Rodgers is nothing but positive about him. And now after the COVID vaccine thing, now he's an Aaron Rodgers hater. He's he shits on him. He always puts him down. So, whatever Nick Wright says, Jets fans, don't take it seriously because his takes are biased and he just a Rodgers hater and he just don't like him because of his whole political opinions and thing. Well, and then the one thing I want to say too is that I still can't believe people are so we could have had Derek Carr. Derek Carr couldn't win the worst division in football last year. The worst division in football. Like Rodgers was with the Saints, easily win that division. I would take Rodgers, 41 years old, coming up with Tony Kelly, to giving Derek Carr that mega contract.
100%. Well, I mean, B-Mac, at the end of the day, the revisionist history is, it's laughable when it comes to Rodgers. What should the Jets have done a year ago? All the other options sucked. I'll take my chance with Aaron Rodgers even coming off this injury over Garoppolo, Carr. Lamar Jackson was never realistic. It was never happening. It didn't work. He got hurt. That's the unfortunate nature of it. But the Jets are in a better spot now than any of the teams that ended up signing those quarterbacks I mentioned. I mean, the Raiders season was an unmitigated disaster as well. They fired their coach. Jimmy G is a backup now. And he's suspended for the first 2 games, too, of this season, by the way. I mean, it's silly.
If you go to gusbuster.com, you could purchase the best umbrella in the universe. And you could use the promo code Jake, so you'll get 15% off on any of your umbrellas.
Sources are saying it is a big-time Gusbuster day in New York City. This is from someone who's in New York City that's watching the show. More of your calls right now. Let's go to everyone's favorite negative Jet fan, JJ. Hello, JJ. What are we negative about today?
Not negative about anything. So I just wanted to call in because the guy that you had on, what was his name? That was just on the show today?
Ty Butler. JJ, can you call back, though? Your audio is really bad right now.
I got you.
All right, we'll get you right back on. Let's go from JJ to a man who needs no introduction, but we will give him one anyway. Sing along, folks.
It's time for another V-Man call. Hopefully he no sleeping. Adios mio.
Hello, V-Man. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Just relaxing with some Company of Heroes 3.
What are we doing? A little coquito?
Company of Heroes 3. I'm playing Company of Heroes 3 right now.
Yeah, but what's in your glass?
I don't have a glass.
What do you mean? You always have an alcoholic beverage.
I'm empty.
You being empty is this is one of the big upsets ever.
No, but honestly, I agree with you. Take Nick Wright is just, let's be honest. He was in our He was in our shoes 6 years ago, like 6, 7 years ago. He was in the same boat as the Jets. Long-suffering franchise, could never win the big game, and now they finally got a dynasty, and he's talking all shit.
Yeah, I mean, it must be nice to be a Chiefs fan. I would enjoy it as well.
I mean, it's just ridiculous take to gain attention. That's what media is in general, not just sports media, but a lot of media it's a lot of the mainstream stuff. It's not about giving you accurate information, it's about gaining attention to generate clicks to increase their ad revenue. Because I guarantee you that clip's going on their YouTube page of him making this ridiculous hot take. You're gonna click on it, the ads are gonna come in, and they make money. And the network makes money from that. That's what it's all about. And that's fact. Anyone who doesn't understand that is just absurd.
Now, V-Man, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Is there any update on the date with the girl with the meniscus injury?
That's no, our schedules are just ridiculously busy, so we're just doing virtual dates.
Really? Over FaceTime?
We're doing stuff like that, yeah.
All right.
Until the schedule clears up.
It sounds like things are progressing.
Yeah.
All right, that's good to hear.
That's the end of that V-Man call. Now he can go back to sleeping.
I love V-Man, man. I love it. No, there's progression, folks. Everyone just be patient here, all right? Someone wrote she's on long-term IR. Yeah, a meniscus injury is no joke. All right? JJ is back. Let's see if his audio sounds better than his takes. Hello, JJ.
I think my takes sound really good, so it's going to be hard to match that. But how are you doing so far?
I'm good, man. I'm still thinking back to your super chat yesterday, which made absolutely no sense, but I enjoyed seeing the absolute vitriol that it brought to the comment section in real time.
Well, I have to bring some excitement to the show. Just want to spice it up a little bit.
I appreciate it.
If everyone agreed with each other, then what would be the point? But so real quick, I was kind of leaning towards the Brock Bowers pick, but then I had to really think to myself. I'm like, what are we doing here? Brock Bowers shouldn't be an option at all. We already have Tyler Conklin and Jeremy Rucker. And you even said it yourself. Everybody knows that. I mean, Aaron Rodgers can get the most out of his tight ends. We don't need to draft a tight end in the first round. That should not be on anybody's wish list at all. To be honest with you, JD has one option this year when it comes to the draft. He has to draft a offensive tackle, and even if he moves back in the draft and moves back in the first round, he still has to just get a tackle in the first round, because you got to think Tyron Smith is coming off an injury. Morgan Moses just said that he played the whole last year with a torn pec. And we can't repeat the same mistakes. I mean, last year our plan was Mekhi Becton and Dwayne Brown. Both of those guys were a shell of themselves, and we had no backup options. So if we draft an offensive tackle in the first round, even if Tyron Smith gets hurt, even if Morgan Moses gets hurt, we have a first round level replacement for them. And these guys are also on 1-year deals. So it's not like we're doing this for just 1 year. No, we'll have them for the future. And then the last point that I wanted to make.
By the way, I agree with you. I think that's the rational take. I still think the majority of this fan base is pro offensive line, but watch out, because the Bauer boys are coming, man. They're like they're organizing, they're strategizing. Steve from Sack Exchange is one of their like cult leaders. Like there's a large contingent of fans that like Brock Bowers that tend to the Jets.
That's insane. And as most of you know, I go to pretty much not pretty much. I go to every Jets home game, but I also go to a lot of the practices in the summer. Tyler Conklin is really good, and he was able to put up good, decent numbers with Zach Wilson and a bunch of backups. Imagine what Tyler Conklin can do with Aaron Rodgers. And then even Jeremy Rucker, like we haven't even got to see him on full display. And then another thing is there's only one football. So I understand that like why people would want a Marvin Harrison or all these other wide receivers, but we have Garrett Wilson, and there's only one football. We don't need 2 number 1 wide receivers. We need offensive tackles. We need depth at the O-line. If you look at it, right, the last team to win the Super Bowl with 2, I guess, potential number 1 wide receivers was the Colts way back when with Peyton Manning, when they had Marvin Harrison, and I'm drawing a blank. What was the other?
Reggie Wayne.
Reggie Wayne. You don't. That was a different era of football back then, and they were still good on the offensive line, and they were still able to run the football. The game plan for the offense next year should be a heavy dose of Brees, play action, get Garrett Wilson the ball, and then if you're in the red zone, throw it up to Mike Williams or Tyler Conklin. That's it. We don't need to go out there and get another wide receiver. We need offensive tackle depth.
I get nervous, though, about an injury to Mike Williams, and then you're back to what you happened last year because I can't rely on Lazard. I get nervous about even Garrett getting hurt. Like, how cruel would it be if, like, Rodgers got hurt and now Garrett gets hurt, and knock on wood, it doesn't happen. Like, these are things I think about as a Jet fan. So it's like I want as many weapons as possible. But I think you could do both. Right, exactly. I think you could trade back, get another top 100 pick, and you can. And I did a mock yesterday with Cole Thompson. We got 2 great receivers in the 2nd and 3rd round after we traded back. So I think there's a path to that. So I'm with you. So I actually like your call today, JJ. And I have someone on the line that is blowing up my phone, requesting to speak with you. Are you ready?
Yeah. Who is it? Dre? Or
it is not Dre. It is Neil.
Ah, my guy.
JJ.
What's going on?
Listen, I want to say 2 things.
Neil,
Peter
you're so loud.
Castro. Peter Castro is on, baby. 13 wins. What am I hearing? My head's going to explode.
Well, yesterday I said that I think we'll win the division.
Wins. But Peter and JJ have one thing in common. They both hate our coaching staff. Now, yesterday, JJ, I'm not going to argue with you. Yesterday, you had a conversation with Jake about Saleh, and he mentioned what coach did you mention, Jake? And you shot him down.
D'Amico Ryans?
No,
Mike Vrabel.
Bring D'Amico Ryans up. You mentioned the Texans coach, Vrabel, and you
Titans coach, ex-Titans coach.
Got to a championship, yada yada yada. Now, D'Amico Ryans or Robert Saleh, who is D'Amico Ryans a great coach in your opinion? Yes or no?
In my opinion, is he a great coach? No, I don't think he's a great coach. He's in his first year.
Coach?
I think he's a good coach. Yeah.
He stinks. Do you know why? He doesn't coach, JJ. Do you know what he does for the entire game or half the game? He calls plays on defense. He doesn't even pay attention to what the hell's going on in the game. He's good because he had C.J. Stroud. If he had Zach Wilson and our goddamn quarterback room, you know what he'd be doing? He'd be picking his ass, watching TV, and maybe be out of a job, okay? Saleh took a defense that was horrendous and turned us into a top 4 defense 2 years in a row. Now, and I'm making the dogs bark. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll quiet down. Sorry, dear. Now, and JJ, I'm not going to get mad at you or anything. I just want you to be on Team Saleh a little bit. Don't call for his head. Let's see what he could do this year with a top quarterback. Okay. Now, as far as Douglas is concerned, one thing we never talk about. He had this pick. He had that pick. He had this pick. This guy brought us Aaron Rodgers, okay? For me, he gets 5 goddamn passes. I don't give a shit what he picks. He brought the best quarterback that me, Peter Castro, all the OGs, I want all the OGs. We know. We've never had a quarterback as good as Aaron Rodgers, not even in our dreams. And no quarterback as good as him would even want to come to the Jets for the last 15 years. So why did Aaron Rodgers want to come to the Jets? Because JD built a roster.
So who's more valuable? Joe Douglas who do you think is more valuable, Joe Douglas or Robert Saleh?
Who do I think is more valuable?
I'll
tell you at the end of the year when Saleh.
No, you can't do that. You got to just look.
If we go to the Super Bowl and win it, I will tell you this: Saleh is going to get a fat ass extension. I'll tell you that right. And Vrabel will still be sitting home, and so will Bill Belichick.
These goddamn exploding cigars. Like, gotta go, Jake. I'll call back later. Shit.
Neil's unreal. Your thoughts on that, JJ? Will you give Robert Saleh a chance before you want his head on a spike?
So here's the thing. I have no choice but to give Robert Saleh a chance. And the weird thing that whenever I read the comments and stuff, like as I'm on the show, people have this weird idea that like I want the Jets to do bad or I want Robert Saleh to do bad. If we go undefeated next year, if we win the Super Bowl next year, I will be ecstatic. I actually put away a lot of money so I can go to the Super Bowl last year in Las Vegas. I had it all planned out. I knew where I was going to sit and I'm ready and I have the money set aside. And then we don't even so I'm doing it right now. That's what I'm doing. I'm saving up to get to the Super Bowl. I'm putting money aside.
It lasted 4 plays. That's why. That's why the season went to what.
I understand that. But right now, I'm just so you guys know, I'm saving up. My goal is, hey, let's get to the Super Bowl so I can have a great time. I'm saving up. I'm ready to go. But I gotta call a spade. If we get out there and the team looks like horseshit, then I'm gonna call up and I'm gonna say, hey, the team looks bad. And right now with my eye test, right? Because I think you guys think that I'm changing my take. I still think that Joe Douglas deserved to be fired after last year. The reason I think so is because, like you said, he put together the worst quarterback room that anybody could possibly imagine. However, I feel like the fact that no one is calling for Robert Saleh and you guys just keep giving him excuse after excuse after excuse is insane to me. I get it. He did a great job with the defense, but at the same time, he's so oblivious to the offensive side of the board of the ball. And we've looked and see that the NFL now is an offensive league. It's no longer a defensive league. So if we have a head coach who has he's oblivious to offense, then what is he really good for? Defensive head coach.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's fair. But we literally saw the same thing happen with the Texans. They did the same thing the Jets tried to do. It worked because they hit on the quarterback. Bill Belichick can't win now. Why? He didn't have a quarterback. Mike Vrabel. Everyone loves Mike Vrabel. I think he's a really good coach. He didn't have a good year. Why? No quarterback. Like, you still need a quarterback. Jet fans who hate on Saleh and bring up his record, it's so lazy. What should the record be with this quarterback situation? Should they have made the playoffs this past year? Really? Hawk says D'Amico hired a better OC. He did not. All right? Now everyone loves Mike LaFleur out in L.A. Oh, it must be nice to work with Matthew Stafford. We're going to sit there and say Bobby Slowick is a genius, or did he work with C.J. Stroud? I believe players play, man. All right? If you gave Bobby Slowick Zach Wilson, it'd be the same result. Zach Wilson had 2 different offensive coordinators, one with no experience, one with plenty of experience. It didn't make a difference. C.J. Stroud is C.J. Stroud. Zach Wilson is Zach Wilson. That's the only difference between D'Amico and Robert Saleh. And I like D'Amico, but I don't think there's anything that he did. And I think I could talk about this objectively and from a very unique perspective. I watch every Texans game. It was my job. See, some of you are just like, oh, D'Amico's great. He hired a better OC. You didn't watch. You did not watch. I did. Look into my eyes, Hawk. Look at them. I watched. All right, and by the way, the Jets actually beat the Texans. That's what's so crazy. Saleh outcoached D'Amico. Why? Because they knew the scheme. Zach had a good game. Why? It's the same defense he's faced in practice for 3 years. You people didn't watch. I did. I looked at it. It pained me to watch Stroud be amazing. That should have been the Jets. Hire the Niners DC. Check. Hire the Niners pass game coordinator to be a first-time OC. Check. Draft a quarterback 2nd overall. Check. Draft the offensive and defensive rookie of the year. Check. This should have been the Jets. Oh, my God. You did not watch the Texans like I had to. I talked about them every day. They had the worst record in football since 2020. They then hit on Stroud. Now, all of a sudden, they're one of the Super Bowl favorites. Amazing how that works. It's really not that complicated. We try to make football way more complicated than it actually is. It's not in 2024. You either have a good quarterback or you don't. That's the bottom line. Do you need coaching? Do you need other players? Yes, that could get you over the top. But to be a good team in the NFL or a team that actually has a chance to contend, you either have a franchise quarterback or you don't. There's 2 types of teams in the league. A team that has a franchise quarterback, a team that's trying to get a franchise quarterback. We had one for 4 plays. That's the bottom line. It's very rare you have a great quarterback and the team sucks. Like Brandon Staley, that's a bad head coach. I'm not ready to say Saleh's a bad head coach because the last 2 years he's been able to win 7 games with his quarterback situation. I actually think that's pretty good if you think about it. And even Mike Tomlin, who's awesome, by the way, probably the only coach I could say, yep, they probably would be, 9-8, 10-7, definitely with him, even with Zach Wilson, because we've seen what he's done. They're not doing anything. You think the Steelers had any chance last year against Buffalo in the first round? No. The last time, the Steelers and the great Mike Tomlin, they had not won a playoff game since 2016. Why? Look at their quarterback. You either have a quarterback or you don't. I'm sorry. I know people love to make football this rah-rah sport, and it's the ultimate team sport, and it is if you have the quarterback in place. Then the other stuff matters. If you don't, it's all semantics. It's rearranging deck chairs along the Titanic if you don't have a franchise quarterback. You're just delaying the inevitable. That's it. Sorry. Sorry to burst your bubble, but that's kind of how it goes. You either have a quarterback or you don't. It destroys the narrative. Oh, football, the ultimate team sport, and we do this and do that. It is. With the contingents, with like the not contingent, but with the prerequisite of you have a great quarterback already, or you can't win. If you have a good quarterback, you can win and get to the playoffs. You cannot win the Super Bowl in 2024 with the way the game is set up, where all the rules favor the offense without a top 10 quarterback in the league. You can't. Name me the team that's going to do it. Name me the team. People will say, well, look what the Eagles did with Nick Foles. Nick Foles did not play that entire year. Eventually, he would have been exposed. They were 10-1 with Carson Wentz when he went down that year. And that is still an outlier. I mean, look at the quarterbacks that actually win Super Bowls. Brady, Manning, Stafford, Eli even. Say what you want about Eli, but in the playoffs, he was elite. So there's always the rare occasion where a guy who's a good regular season quarterback can be elite. Joe Flacco was elite in that one run. But these are more likely than not outliers. You either have a quarterback or you don't. I mean, it's just, we try to overcomplicate it, but that's really it. Paolo is up next. What's up, Paolo?
Oh, my God. You coming through?
I hear you. It looks like
Oh, man.
Are you in the rain or the snow or maybe both?
I'm visiting the Catadine Mountain Range in northern Maine, like Acadia. There's a huge snowstorm that's rolling through.
How about that?
They're expecting 2 feet. I was going to do some. I love the snow. I come up here. I do snowshoeing. It's great.
I love that.
So I super chatted you the other day about the swing tackles, and I wanted to ask more specifically. Since we have Moses, since we have Smith, is that a mode of strategy now going into the draft more specifically to find these tackles that can move back and forth and can do it effectively?
I think so. I mean, there's still room on this spot for an upgrade over Billy Turner. Like, who's taking the Billy Turner role, right? I hope it's Bakhtiari or Donovan Smith, but I mean, it's also something that they could just look at and say, we're going to wait till after the draft to sign one of those guys, depending on what we do in the first round. If they take an offensive lineman, maybe they wouldn't, because how many offensive linemen are you going to keep? They kept 9 last year. They already said they regretted not keeping 10. So if we assume this year they keep 10, they already have a lot of guys that are under contract. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
That too. But do you make the room because of the injury possibility? Not to jinx it, knock on wood.
Look, I still want them to go O-line in the first round, so I would.
I love it.
Hey, Paolo, enjoy the snow, all right? Give us a snow angel.
I will. Good. Thank you, Jake. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for calling in. JJ writes in with a super chat. I wasn't saying anything negative today, but you and Neil forced me to talk about Salah. Point is, defense head coaches don't win Super Bowls anymore. We need an offensive guy. See, I might agree with you if yesterday you weren't arguing that they should hire Mike Vrabel. You know what side of the ball Mike Vrabel is? Oh, yeah. Defense.
Enough.
That's right, JJ. Defense. Thanks for the super chat. Who had a better record last year, Robert Saleh or Mike Vrabel, by the way? It's almost like you need a quarterback to have any chance. That's the bottom line. More calls right now. Mr. Bonesy is in the shoe store. Hello, Bones.
Jake, my brother. Jake, my brother.
Is that a
What's
Nick
up?
hat? We got Nick's Nets on right now. I see you.
It's on right now.
Yep.
Supporting my orange and blue today.
Yeah, the skies aren't orange and blue in New York right now, I've been told.
The Gustbuster umbrella is clutch on days like this. It's enough for my whole family to be under it, but for my ass, it's perfect.
Have you noticed, by the way, that you now have a small little Chiron graphic that says "Goat Shoe Salesman" below you?
I didn't put that, but I was like, you know what? I'm just not gonna mess with it.
No, I put it. I named you the Goat Shoe Salesman. I moved you ahead of Al Bundy and Michael Jordan.
Shit, man, that is big shoes to fill. We were just talking with Ty about Michael Jordan, and you know how I feel about him. So, who would you take in that sense? Would you go LeBron or
Jordan? Done. Jordan.
How could you argue who's the greatest if you would take, the most clutch moment in NBA history and you choose Jordan? How are you going to argue with me about LeBron being the greatest? So anyway, that's
my thing. Look, I hate the Jordan LeBron thing because they're different players, but the LeBron crew acts like it's insulting if you say he's the second best basketball player of all time, as if that's some sort of slight. You know what I mean? Like that's still pretty good. There's a lot of people that have played basketball. You might be the second best ever at it. That's not too shabby.
Right, and LeBron's got his accolades. Like, you could build a team around LeBron. He's great off the court, on the court. He's a great role model. He's a great team player. But in that moment, come on. Anyway, I was like, for the first time ever, agreeing with JJ for a while. I was like, who is this guy? Yesterday, we're going to win the division. And now today, oh, man. And one thing about Salah that people don't understand is as good as, as powerful as JD's third kicking leg is, the development on defense that Salah has shown with his staff and his regime is amazing. I mean, we develop players just like the whole Bryce Huff thing that we're all upset about. We still have to find out about it. But obviously, if they went to Salah and he said yo, man, look, with the guys on the team and for our scheme, I guess you got to let Bryce go. You got to trust him. He develops these guys like JFM. Look at JJ's, improvement from year 1 to 2. DJ Reed's another great find, and that Salah's guy. Salah plucked him. That was a guy that Salah coached. Just let's hope that Kinlaw comes over here and it's another man. We didn't even know about this guy, but Salah did. And even I always give credit to Douglas, but getting Quincy Williams off waivers, that was Salah banging the table for Quincy. He wanted to draft him over who's the other linebacker on San Francisco? I'm blanking.
Greenlaw?
Yeah. Same thing. He was talking about he wanted Quincy over Greenlaw, and he didn't take Quincy. He got Greenlaw, which ended up working, but he wanted Quincy. So, Salah gets a bad rep, but there's not that many coaches that do both besides Mike Tomlin and maybe John Harbaugh. If you look at some of the greats, even Andy Reid, he's constantly holding that clipboard. He ain't saying nothing to the defense, So when things are positive and going good, it's going to happen this year when Rodgers is holding his weight, it's going to be man, look at Salah holding it down on D. He's given us top 5 the last 2 years. So, but anyway, what else is going on, man?
Man, I have a question for you that I'm going to bring up, or a statement made by a listener. I need you to respond. Neil writes in, I will prove I am the GOAT shoe salesman when I go to the store.
Look, when we are chilling with Craig, when he comes and visits and stuff, we're all hanging out. If we come to my store, before we go out to eat, a little closer to closing time, I will 100% let Neil take care of a couple customers for fun. We can film it and show it. We can do whatever the fuck we want. We can do whatever we want here. And then afterwards, after we close, we can get ready and chill before we go out to eat. Whatever we got planning to do. But Neil, it's a deal, bro. I want to see you in action with a couple of these ball busters. So
I can't wait. I can't wait, Bones. Ladies and gentlemen, our GOAT shoe salesman, Mr. Bonesy. Always working the Saturday shoe store shift on Madison Ave. All right. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 callers on hold. I got plenty of things to do today, so we're going to put the ticker up so we get to everyone. Southern Jet, you're up first. What's up, Southern Jet?
Hey, a lot of crazy stuff. I can't even remember what I was going to talk about. Neil with the anal call of the week. Coach picking his ass, and I think he said his dog is farting or something. And as far as Nick Wright, who by the way looks like a cheap John Wick lookalike at Grauman's Chinese Theater, he showed himself as a troll. If you listen back to what he said, he did the cornerback thing, which was a slight against the Jets with Sauce. But he said Brees Hall, a good running back, but ACL injury, so we'll see how he does. That was a fucking year ago.
Yeah, I mean, Brees Hall, I think, already proved with 1,600 scrimmage yards, he's just fine off the ACL.
Yeah, and the point I was going to make is the game has changed. It's a 2-year, 3-year window now for most teams, and so for the Jets, I'm sick of throwing shit at the TV. Within the first 2 series, seeing the defensive line collapsing on our quarterback. So I'm in favor of bolstering our offensive line, whether it be through a veteran pickup or the first round. We can get some wide receivers, and we all know, if you followed the game long enough, that if you have a solid offensive line, you are going to have average running backs running better. You're going to have receivers running better. And then if you throw in a top 10 quarterback, you go all the way. But we have to have backups for the offensive line. And if we do, I don't think there's a problem.
I agree.
I
And
really
also to your point, Rich, it's easier, I think, to find a wide receiver in season than it would be to fix your offensive line in season if there's a bunch of injuries. We saw this with the Jets last year. Like, if the Jets are in the mix, but let's say, God forbid, there's an injury to Mike Williams or Garrett Wilson has to miss some time, at the trade deadline, it is easier to find a wide receiver than it would be a quality offensive lineman. Like, we've seen the Jets even do this in their history. The last time they were good, Mike Tannenbaum acquired Braylon Edwards in the middle of that 2009 season, helped them get to the AFC title game. Receivers get moved to the deadline way more often than quality offensive linemen do. So, God forbid, there is an injury and they don't have enough firepower, you could find the solution to that in season. Whereas if there's just carnage on the O-line, you're screwed. That's why I'm pro offensive line in the first round, and I'll address the weapons in the second and third round, hopefully, because it's a really good deep class there. Bang Mateo with a super chat. Nick Wright was on the bead last year, just saying. No, he wasn't. You don't get to claim victory if you thought the Jets were going to be bad last year when Rodgers got hurt on play 4. It's like what Ty said that I thought was well said when he joined us earlier. You're right for the wrong reasons. Prestige up next. What's up, Prestige?
Do you feel that? It feels like the analysts out there are running out of things to talk about. You see what they want. Any hater out there, they're preying on the Jets' downfall, and I think we get that idea. There's something in the air. They don't truly believe that we're going to be bad. They want us to be bad. Otherwise, they'd have no talking points, and their nightmares would come true. We see me, all of these analysts and these haters have brought a side out of me that you've never seen. With that being said, I'm on the Bowers train. I'm a Bowers boy. But here's what's bugging me the most.
Are you the face of the Bowers boys? I mean, I could see it with the glasses and the hair and the vest. Is that what a Bowers boy is supposed to look like?
Probably not. Regardless, they say the AFC is too tough for us, but the reality is too tough's not good enough to beat the Jets anymore. You got to be great on all cylinders. They say the toughness is too much for us. If the AFC is too tough, I got news for you. We're the great white shark up in this house. That's all I got. I'll call in whenever I can.
Prestige? What a call. Man, it's dark in New York still, too. I didn't realize it was nighttime at MetLife already, man. Hit the like button if you're watching live and you like that call from Prestige. The number one grinder up next. What's up, number one grinder? Hey, unmute your mic, number one grinder.
I'm sorry. I would say this. I was before I was starting my live. I was hearing the people's mainstream talking about the Jets. Oh, just ain't that. If you don't like us, stop talking about us because y'all got delusion minds and y'all got delusion mouth. If you want for our downfall, shut up. Let us do what we got to do. That's all I'm saying. Y'all need to be quiet. I'm dead serious. Y'all need to be quiet because it seems like everything lately you're saying about us is negative. But you call yourself credible. You trying to knock my man Jake and other people that represent us, Jet Nation. But you want them to call you credible? And all y'all just got negative viewpoints. So just shut up. If you ain't got nothing to say good about the Jets, just shut up because we're going to have a good season. We're going to do our thing. And thanks again, brother. Reach out to me. I put my email in and keep up the fine work, my brother.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for the call. I hope you're right. I just give me a season where Aaron Rodgers plays 15 of the 17 games. We'll take that and figure out the rest. Just give us a fun season. Sneakers to boots. What do you got for us today, Sneakers?
What's going on, Jake? I have to say, though, I do agree with JJ. At the end of last year, I wanted Salah gone. I wanted JD fired. But, I mean, JD's...
I get it. A lot of people felt that way. I was pro keeping both, but I understood the argument for firing them. My big thing was if you're going to fire them, you better fire both of them, not one or the other.
Yeah, no, I agree. JD's making his rounds and improving the team, and we just have to see what Salah can do with it. Just the lack of awareness on the sideline last year, whenever we did bad, was just so infuriating because you didn't see him really ever coaching up the players, kind of getting in their face and trying to like bring out that positive vibe and reinforcement that he always preaches about. So we'll see how he does this year. I'm interested to see how he does with adversity when we do have a good team and Aaron Rodgers is healthy. That's going to be the true testament of how he is as a coach. So I'm interested to see what we do. Do have a quick question for you. So in a vacuum, if we did end up with the second or third overall pick and we lost to the Commanders and we lost to the Patriots, would you take Marvin Harrison Jr., Neighbors, or Joe Wall, or would you trade out?
Give me the scenario one more time just so I understand it.
If we ended up with the second or third pick, if we lost to the Patriots and the Commanders,
what would I do?
Yeah, Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Joe Wall, or trade out.
Trade out, get a haul for a team that's coming up for one of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, it figures the 1 year that there's 4 quarterbacks, we can't get that. So we'll see what happens. JD's gonna work his magic, but all we got is positivity right now going into the draft. Let's go Jets.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, they were not as bad as the teams that are picking that high, you know? Like that's what I don't think fans understand. You realize that the Jets were picking that high, it'd be tough to envision them actually winning a championship this year, even with Aaron Rodgers back. Like, teams don't go from 3 or 4 wins, which is what it would take if you look to be picking that high, 3 or 4 wins to then winning the Super Bowl the following year. It doesn't happen. Like, you have to be around a 7 or 8 win team to even like historically have a shot to then go from that to a Super Bowl winner the following year. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree, and that's also a testament of just the character that JD has around the league, respect around the league. Same thing with Salah. Like with our abysmal quarterback play and the way our season end up, there's still Tyron Smith who wants to come play with us. Mike Williams still wants to come play with us. The Aaron Rodgers effect is in full effect. So yeah, I mean,
I thought the building was toxic, right? Oh, all these leaks, this and that. Well, maybe they fired all the people that were leaking stuff. And have you noticed none of the beat guys have broken any of the transactions the Jets have had? If there's all these leaks and everyone wants out, you know, why are all these good players coming to the Jets all of a sudden? Speaking glowingly about Salah and Douglas and the plan and Aaron Rodgers and all that. It makes you think, doesn't it?
yeah, hindsight's 2020. But I'm actually hoping. I mean, I'm tossing turning between trading up, trading back. But if we can make a nice deal with the Chargers, since we have some people over there, that'd be a good trade up to get Malik Neighbors from Marvin Harrison Jr. But
oh yeah.
All right, Jake. Well, thank you for the content. Hope you come back home. When you come back next week, 2 weeks.
It's next week. It's all happening.
All right. Well, you picked a perfect weekend because it is absolutely atrocious outside. So, let's go Jets.
Sneakers, excellent call. Yeah, weather tough in New York right now. Get those Ghostbusters out. Charles writes in, going offensive tackle no matter what gets Beckoning again. BPA. See, here's the difference, right? And appreciate the super chat. Offensive tackle no matter what. It's a much better tackle class this year than it was that year. And if the Jets go offensive tackle at 10, let's say, they don't trade back because they love one of the tackles, we're probably talking about the second or third offensive lineman in this class. It's a better class than the Becton class from 2020. So I think it's a different set of circumstances. I think there's a strong chance, Charles, BPA matches up with one of these tackles. That's the bottom line. They could go receiver if they love Roma Dunze. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a bad idea if he's there at 10. They take him. What they would have to do if they don't go offensive line in the first round and they take Bowers or they take a receiver, they're going to have to shore up the depth on the O-line. And that can be done with some shrewd free agent signings. There's still guys out there I like. Bakhtiari, Donovan Smith for swing tackle roles. And, you're going to have to find a starting level offensive lineman in the third round or one of your 2 fourth-round picks. Maybe the Jets have scouted these offensive linemen and they think they could get a good guard in the third round. That could be their insurance policy for AVT. They could find the tackle in the fourth round. That could be their insurance policy for Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith. Or they think Carter Warren truly could take a big step in year 2 and they think they're comfortable with him as the swing. That we don't know. I'll say this, though. If a year from now we're talking about how the downfall of the Jets was once again the offensive line, then they probably made a huge mistake not going O-line in round 1. Because I think Olu Fashanu, Talise Fulaga, I think both guys are on the board and the Jets could take them at 10. I have no problem with it. No problem with it. Frank writes in with a super chat. Jets make run at Simmons at safety because we're very thin. Look, Frank, I hope they do. I wouldn't count on it, though. They don't typically spend big money at safety, and I'm sure Simmons is not going to be playing for the veteran minimum. Now, is his market depreciated enough where you could get him at a value? Maybe. I mean, no one thought Tyron Smith was going to be a possibility because he was going to get too much money. That didn't happen. So I think that's important. By the way, speaking of Robert Saleh, he's talking Monday for the first time since the offseason started. He'll be at the NFL owners meeting down in Orlando. So he'll be having breakfast with the beat. He'll be talking early Monday morning. And we'll react to what he has to say at some point on the channel later that day. On that note, that's going to do it for me. I want to thank everyone who took time to tune in today's program. Thanks again to Ty Butler from ESPN New York, one of my friends in the business, for coming on the show as today's guest. All the calls, you guys were tremendous. All the super chats, I thank you all. Stay safe if you're in the New York area with the weather. Knicks Nets at halftime right now. It looks like we got a 2-point Knick lead. So I'll be watching the second half and enjoying my Saturday, as well as watching the NCAA tournament as well. Jet fans, you guys are awesome. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll talk to you guys soon. JETS, 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 Jets. Hey, there we go. Light it up, Ricky. Yeah, let's get back to your calls right now. One of our favorites is on the Ghostbuster hotline. Ricky NY joins us now. What's up, Ricky?
Hey, Jake.
Hey, Ricky, how you doing?
Thanks for taking my call, Jake. I just finished smoking all the available weed in the panhandle, so bear with me if I collapse here in front of my personalized flag. Any chance you could send that boxing guy, Gary, to the Jameis Winston town? Maybe Gator can build a special hall for quarterbacks who throw more interceptions than completed passes. Well, not a Florida guy, but can go to Seminoles all the way there. I've got a whole lot. I've got all of them in there. I don't give a shit. Well, I think I got to relight this thing. Hold on a second. I just got this new blowtorch lighter. Let's try it out. Try it. Oh, Jesus Christ. Should have backed off that setting a bit. Anyway, Jake, I'll hang up for now and grab the burn kit again. Later, brother.
Oh, my God.
Yo, Gator is different, man. That dude is different.